We also have on board Robert Weiner, Democratic strategist, columnist, former communications director for Clinton drug czar General Barry McCaffrey. He's also former chief of staff of the House Committee on Aging, and also was former communications director for both Congressman Rangel as well as Conyers of New York and Michigan, respectively. Bob, good to have you back as well.
Good to be with you, Alan. Literally back, driving back home as we speak from the airport from Florida, where we scoped out a lot of political situations there.
Bob Weiner, to you, I know you would have loved to have had Newt Gingrich as the GOP nominee. It really doesn't look as if that's what's going to happen. It does appear as if it's going to be Romney. But was there a glimmer of hope for the Democrats there for a little while, and how dashed do you feel it is at this point?
Well, I would have loved Ron Paul and Santorum, and that game is not over in Iowa to throw absolute chaos into the Republicans. But Romney's flip-flops are a pretty good message of its own. No candidate, including Romney, beats Barack Obama right now. And by the way, when you talk about a Romney in those ads and no influence, the fact that it's 6 Romney senators that run that PAC, the fact that it's $2 million of paying capital money, which is where Romney used to work, gee, where do you think the influence is coming from?
Well, lots of PACs are comprised of friends. That doesn't mean that those friends are going to be any more controllable. And if, in fact, they were being controlled, doesn't mean it would be any less a violation of the law. That's just how I see it. For one thing, Romney at least has demonstrated a willingness to ferociously fight Obama, and McCain never showed that side. Bob Weiner, am I far off base?
You're so far off base, Alan, by saying anybody will crush Obama when people realize, your opening of the show, people realize that it was the Bush economics that were causing 750,000 lost jobs a month when Obama came in. And meanwhile, we've had 22 straight months of job gains.
So, Bob, I'm thinking what that means is that most individual congressmen and congresswomen poll significantly higher in their individual districts than the president does nationwide. So why use that as the false measure of defense, Bob Weiner? Why do you think the president and his minions will always point out the horribly low poll numbers for Congress when, in fact, those national numbers have zero correlative relevance to any ballot poll election that's ever going to take place in any of those 435 districts? Bob Weiner.
When you see this low a Congress approval rating, though, Alan, it's been parallel to the 1994, 2006, and 2010 takeovers by Congress. And so that is what's happening here. The American people, another poll that blends with it is that they blame the Republicans for obstructionism and for being the most do-nothing Congress since Truman ran successfully against the do-nothing Congress. They blame them by 15 points over the Democrats, and that is the telling point. This Congress could be a sweep for the Democrats because people are furious at the obstructionism that took you to the financial crisis, to the debt crisis, to the downgrading of the United States, and to where we are economically. People know that this Congress wants to do only tax breaks for the rich and continue 2 useless wars. That is the basis. It's not Glass-Steagall, Alan. That's an esoteric, intellectual, and you may have even a correct merit point. But the American people realize that the tax breaks and the 2 wars are what have...
No, Bob, but for the repeal... Bob, wait a minute. Bob, everybody. But for the repeal of Glass-Steagall, this meltdown could not have existed. They would not have been able to pull the same shenanigans. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were the ones who enabled all these banks to hang all that bad paper, which brought us into this current meltdown. And yes, Bush spent too much. He was hemorrhaging money like a hemophiliac would blood trying to operate a knife shop, okay?
And took his
too
revenue
much.
source away with the tax breaks. How stupid is that? That's the point.
It only does it. No. As long as you're not raising spending, when you cut taxes, that increases revenue because you allow that many more businesses to have that many more dollars to hire that many more people who turn around and pay that many more dollars in taxes. John F. Kennedy did it, proved it was true in the 60s. Reagan replicated it in the 80s. I don't know how often this thing has to be proven true before people come to understand
Reagan tripled the deficit. Kennedy gave the breaks to the lower and middle as his basis. And that was the reason it was strength. And he increased people programs at the same time. You always make that argument, but you forget those critical points.